Ladies and gentlemen, this banking situation in the US, man, this thing is serious. There is a lot of money being moved from bank to bank right now. And a lot of small banks are feeling that they're losing their customers to big banks. People have lost confidence in these small regional banks and they just feel the bigger banks are a lot more stable, and it is a mad exodus away from the small bank in fear of them collapsing. So you can clearly see there has been a major impact on how people feel and their perception about these now small time little banks that are around. They have changed towards these banks in a huge way. So these stories are like coming out every day. That's how you know it is a big deal. So small banks are losing to big banks. Their customers are about to feel it. So banks too big to fail are gaining deposits. How can I compete for new business? This is what the small banks are saying. So more people are leaving the small banks than opening accounts with small banks. Hey, you never know. Look, people that have had a hard time opening bank accounts, this might be your time to dive in there, you know? So, Scott Anderson answered the doorbell one night in March to find his 8-year-old neighbor waiting for a bag of popcorn. Mr. Anderson, the chief executive officer at Zion Bank in Utah, had helped the boy open an account on his birthday last year. Is my money safe? This is what the boy was asking him now after watching the collapse of several banks. Mr. Anderson said in industry conference last week the collapse of a pair of lenders in rapid succession is testing American faith in the regional and community banks that supply credit to a big chunk of the nation's entrepreneurs and businesses. Bankers across the country feel panicky, and yes, they did, especially after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Earlier this month, their social media feeds were jammed with stories of people moving their money, and they still are. This is like a huge thing going on in the country right now. Or at least they're talking about moving their money. Deposits flooded into megabanks whose failure in the US government would almost certainly prevent. So the 25 biggest US banks have gained in a short period of time, just in days, $120 billion in deposit just in the last few days. That's a lot of money being moved. And this is after SVB collapse, according to the Federal Reserve data. All the US banks below that level lost. Now, the small banks, listen to what the small banks have lost: $108 billion over the same time period in just a few days. It was the largest weekly decline in small bank deposits on record. And you know what, y'all? If people keep moving their money at the rate that they are, a lot of these small banks are not going to be able to exist anymore. The only way they may halfway make it if they come up with a way to prove to people that their money is safe. But right now, nobody is feeling that. Nobody is feeling it. Meanwhile, more than $220 billion have flowed into money market funds over the past 2 weeks, according to data. So, boy, when you look at the data, I mean, the large banks are now kicking butt out here for real. And the small banks, some of them, because so many deposits are leaving the bank, some of them are going into the negative and they're already in the negative. Panic so far has not subsided with deposit swings that could last. They're saying this could last for a while. Mm-mm. Banks need deposits to make loans. So if deposits fall, lending is almost sure to follow. What's more, the recent turmoil could spur banks to start paying depositors higher interest rates, crippling earnings, and further cutting into their lending capacity. That part I don't care about. The banks didn't lend to our people. So that means the people that they love lending to, they're going to have to cut back on. I already did a story on that. So, anyway, and the speed of the recent deposit runs, customers withdrew $42 billion the same day SVB collapsed. And then when Signature Bank also crashed, $18 billion were moved on that day. The likely result analysis and central bankers said is a credit crunch. If we lose the deposit base to the money center banks, we can't grow and lend out future dollars. So, this is a CEO of a small bank in North Dakota called Choice Bank. Communities can't grow and businesses can't profit. Mr. Brian Johnson said that choice bankers and products hold their own against those of the mega banks, but that the lender will never have the too big to fail status that promises to shield depositors from losses. How can I compete for new business with that big, with that big thing that's standing in their way where you got a large bank that have the government backing and these small banks, they don't have that so much. If they did, you would not have seen Signature Bank and SVB fall the way they did. And, where would they be without government intervention? So, and push come to shove, if major things happen in America, it'll be easy for them to let these small banks go. It really will. So, lenders were already pulling back before the turmoil. In a federal survey of senior loan officers in January, nearly 44% of the banks reported tightening small business lending standards in the prior 3 months. Yeah, because they kept doing, interest rate hikes to try to curb some of the inflation, and ultimately, what they did was hurt the small banks. That's what they did. So, right now, the small banks are losing, and the big mega banks out here are gaining. But, when you really think about it, y'all, how good is that for us? It's at these big banks, well, it really don't matter when it's us. We get the police called on us in the banks, whether it's a small or large bank, it actually don't matter. But, it's not gonna change anything for us as far as how we're treated in these banks. But right now, they said the US have thousands of small and mid-sized banks, and these banks are operating across state line. A number of smaller banks, they said they have declined more than 9,000 over the past 3 decades, largely due to mergers. When the local bank disappear, people and businesses in their communities will find credit goes away too. But you know what? That's really not the people's fault. Y'all have not done a very good job in running and managing these banks. Y'all can complain about all these deposits leaving, but the bankers, they are the ones that failed the community at the end of the day. Y'all failed the community. So they're hoping that sometime in the future this will subside and people will go back to the small banks. But at this point, after watching bank failures in March, that's not a guarantee. That's not a guarantee that people are going to go back. But y'all, please tell me what you think. They are definitely panicking out here, especially small bankers right now. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.